Letting go of control. When you stop forcing life, you truly begin to live. There is an illusion that modern people often chase endlessly. The belief that if we can just control everything, then happiness and safety will be ours. We try to map out every detail of our lives, our careers, relationships, even how others respond to us, hoping that if we hold on tightly enough, fear will vanish. But life, like a flowing river, never stands still. All phenomena are in constant motion. This is the nature of impermanence. Trying to control what is inherently shifting is like trying to grasp running water with bare hands. The tighter we grip, the more it slips away. In Buddhist teachings, this clinging is one of the roots of suffering. The more we demand life to obey our plans, the more we suffer when it doesn't. And slowly, without even realizing, we stop truly living. We become like sentinels, tense and tired, guarding against every imagined danger. Letting go of control does not mean giving up or becoming passive. On the contrary, it is an act of deep awareness and wisdom. It is the understanding that there are things within our influence and things far beyond it. When you allow life to unfold on its own rhythm, you are not being swept away. You are flowing with it consciously and peacefully. A person who walks the path of awakening will prepare for the future with care and compassion, but they do not cling to the outcome. They plan with clarity but know that the winds can shift at any moment. When hardship arises, they do not resist with anger, but with understanding, knowing that life is a process, not a possession. And in that space of clarity, they find softness in the storm and stillness within chaos. In truth, what we need to manage is not the world outside, but the mind within, our thoughts, our emotions, our responses. A trained mind that knows how to let go will not be tossed around by uncertainty. It will remain like a deep lake. The surface may ripple in the wind, but the depths stay calm and undisturbed. This letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is a manifestation of spiritual maturity. True strength is not found in domination, but in presence. In trusting that even when things do not go your way, peace is still possible. Because peace is not found in control, but in clarity. When you release the need to hold everything tightly, you do not lose anything essential. Instead, you begin to see more clearly, listen more deeply, and live more fully. You are no longer imprisoned by the plans in your mind. You finally walk upon the real earth beneath your feet. And it is in that moment when you cease struggling against the flow of life that a quiet voice within begins to rise, the voice of peace that has always been there, waiting for you to come home. Letting go of attachment. Happiness is not found in what you hold, but in the grace of letting it fly free. There are things in life we feel we cannot live without. A beloved person, a title, a cherished memory, or a long-held dream. We hold on to them with all our hearts, believing that clinging tightly will bring us peace. But in truth, the more tightly we grip, the more we become possessed by what we thought we possessed. In Buddhism, attachment is known as craving or clinging. Not merely liking something, but binding ourselves to it so completely that our sense of being becomes dependent on it. We don't just love someone, we believe that without them, we are incomplete. We don't just value success, we define our worth by it. Yet the world is impermanent. Everything rises and falls with time. People change, jobs evolve, bodies age, and what once sparkled fades like mist in the morning sun. The pain we feel does not come from change itself, but from the belief that things must stay the same. Letting go of attachment does not mean becoming indifferent or cold. On the contrary, it is the purest kind of love. A love that understands freedom is the greatest gift we can offer both others and ourselves. To love someone while still giving them space to grow. To appreciate beauty without needing to lock it in a box. To be present with what is, without demanding that it never changes. In letting go, we learn to enjoy without possessing, to give without expecting, to honor the moment without chaining it to permanence. Like a traveler who pauses by a clear stream, drinks a handful of water, breathes in deeply, then continues on, grateful but not attached. Attachment often hides behind fear. Fear of losing, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. But when we pause and reflect, we see clearly true fullness does not come from outside. It is not found in the things we own, the people we keep, or the images we uphold. It lies in the peace of a mind that knows how to rest, a heart that knows it is already whole. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is clinging, and he showed that liberation begins with release, not escape from life, but being present within it without being bound by it. At that moment, we discover freedom, not because we have everything, but because we no longer need to hold so tightly. The one who lets go is not diminished. They are enriched, filled with lightness, clarity, and a deeper capacity to love. In letting go, we lose nothing that truly matters. We simply return to ourselves, unburdened, undisturbed, and whole. Letting go of the past, because the present is the only place where life truly happens. We often walk through the present moment while our minds remain trapped in a place long gone, the past. Memories, mistakes, sorrow, and regrets linger like shadows, quietly following us everywhere we go. Some people spend their whole lives reliving a single moment, as if by thinking about it enough, they could somehow change how it ended. But the truth is this: the past cannot be rewritten. It has already passed. Yet what causes us pain is not the past itself, but our inability to release it. When we carry the weight of what has already ended, our hearts grow heavy, and there is no space left to welcome the joy that lives in the present. We walk through life as if in a dream, our eyes looking forward, but our hearts constantly turn back. Buddhism teaches that the root of happiness lies in mindfulness, in the ability to live fully in this moment, where breath still flows, where body and mind are present. The present is the only soil where we can plant and harvest. The past, no matter how beautiful or painful, is only a fading footprint in the sand. And if we keep looking back, we will miss everything that is blooming right now. Letting go of the past does not mean denying it or pretending it never happened. It is not a shallow forgetting, but a courageous acknowledgement. This has happened, I have learned, and now it is time to move forward. It means letting go, not to erase the memory, but to free ourselves from the chains of old stories, from mistakes that cannot be undone, from people who are no longer here, from things that cannot begin again. Forgiveness is part of this release, sometimes toward others, often toward ourselves. Forgiveness is not about saying the other person deserves it. It is about recognizing that we deserve to be free, free from resentment, self-punishment, and guilt. Forgiveness is the moment we open the door of our hearts and gently loosen the grip we have held for too long. And when we dare to let those old pieces drift away, something beautiful begins to happen. The heart becomes lighter, the gaze becomes clearer, the breath feels deeper and wider. Life begins to speak to us again, not through memory, but through the vivid living pulse of now. You are not what happened to you. You are not your past mistakes or your losses. You are the person who is choosing right now, the one who can step out of an old story and begin writing a new chapter with awareness and grace. So let the past flow away like water that has already passed beneath the bridge. Let old grief find rest. Let memories become teachers rather than prisons. Because only the present is alive, and only here can you love, live, and transform. And it is in this moment, this precious, fleeting now, that peace begins to bloom again. Letting go of the ego, because the false self keeps you from truth and love. There is an invisible mask that all of us wear at some point, the ego. It is not our body, nor our name, nor our job. The ego is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. I am this kind of person. I am better than them. I cannot be wrong. I must be acknowledged. At first glance, it may appear to be confidence, but when you look deeper, you'll see it is fear in disguise. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of not being recognized. Fear that if we are not exceptional, we are nothing at all. So, the ego begins to build walls between me and them, between right and wrong, between success and failure. But the higher the walls, the more isolated we become, not just from others, but from ourselves. In Buddhism, there is a central teaching called anatta, non-self. It teaches that there is no fixed, unchanging identity. Our names, our thoughts, our emotions, our roles, they are all temporary manifestations, rising and falling like clouds in the sky. Our true self is not found in these labels, but in something deeper, the quiet awareness that watches them all without clinging. Letting go of the ego does not mean losing your personality. It does not make you bland or invisible. On the contrary, it is when you begin to live authentically, without hiding, without pretending. It is when you can say, I was wrong, without feeling lesser. When you can listen to those who think differently without feeling threatened. When you can show up fully as yourself, without needing to dominate or impress. Think about it. How many arguments arise not from truth, but from someone needing to be right? How many relationships have ended not from lack of love, but from an unwillingness to apologize? How often have we been hurt, not by the situation itself, but because someone didn't see us the way we wanted to be seen? When led by the ego, we live like people wearing armor, always on guard, always ready to react, always proving something. But when we let go of the ego, we become softer. Humility replaces pride. Understanding replaces judgment. Stillness replaces inner noise. We begin to live like water, adaptable, nourishing, and deep. A person no longer ruled by ego is someone who can live from the heart. They don't need to shout their worth because they embody it in every breath. They don't rely on external recognition because they have already seen themselves clearly from within. The Buddha never taught us to become important. He said, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. When we release the ego, we don't lose ourselves. We rediscover the person we've always been beneath all the noise and expectations. Letting go of ego is not a one-time act, but a lifelong return. Every time we choose silence over argument, truth over image, love over winning, we take another step toward inner freedom. Letting go of expectations, because expecting too much is the root of disappointment. Deep within every mind lies an invisible map of how life should unfold. We expect others to understand us without us needing to explain. We expect goodness to come when we try hard. We expect love to be returned, kindness to be appreciated, and effort to turn into success, as if life followed a predictable formula. But reality rarely follows our script, and in the gap between what happens and what we imagined, disappointment quietly begins to grow. Expectations, in truth, are a hidden form of craving. They are subtle but deeply rooted. We may not name them, but we live through them. And when they are unmet, our emotions falter. We feel sadness, frustration, or betrayal, even when no one has actually done anything wrong. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering lies in attachment to desire, the longing for things to be a certain way or for reality to align with our will. Expectations are simply attachments to a future that has not yet arrived. When we say, "This must happen in this way for me to be okay," we hand over our peace to something we can never control. Letting go of expectations does not mean giving up on dreams or living without direction. On the contrary, it reflects a deeper and wiser way of living. We still strive, still care, still act with intention, but we do not chain our happiness to outcomes. We give our best, then release, like planting a seed into the earth, trusting it will grow in its own time without forcing it to bloom on our schedule. In relationships, expectations often block authentic connection. We want our friends to understand us without needing to explain. We want our partner to behave the way we believe is right. We expect our loved ones to mirror our emotions, our logic, our values, but each person sees the world through their own lens. Only when we stop trying to mold others into our ideals can we truly see them as they are, and that is where real love begins, not from judgment, but from acceptance. Letting go of expectations also teaches us how to live more fully in the present. Expectations constantly pull the mind toward an imagined future, but when we release our insistence that life must go as planned, we finally show up for what is. We begin to see the beauty in surprise, the lesson in adversity, the doorway in what first looked like a dead end, and perhaps most importantly, we often bind ourselves with unrealistic expectations of who we should be. I must always be strong. I should have achieved more by now. I cannot fail. These inner demands create a quiet suffering, a sense of never being enough. But when we let go of expectations, we do not lose our vision. We release the pressure, and what returns is not passivity, but compassion toward others and toward ourselves. Letting go of the need to be understood, because truth does not need to be justified. There is a quiet yearning that lives inside most of us, the longing to be understood. We want others to truly see who we are inside, to recognize the emotions we cannot put into words, to feel the sincerity behind our choices and actions. We want to be seen accurately, to explain ourselves clearly, to be defended when misunderstood. And when that doesn't happen, we often feel lonely, lost, and even hurt. Since childhood, we've carried this wish. Please understand me. Please believe I didn't mean to hurt. Please know I'm sad even if I say I'm fine. Over time, it becomes a form of attachment, not to a person, but to approval, agreement, and the desire to be seen as right in the eyes of others. Yet in Buddhism, we are taught that all attachment leads to suffering, even attachment to being understood. Because the truth is, not everyone will have the awareness to understand you. Not everyone listens with an open heart. Not everyone has walked the path you've taken, so they may not see what you've seen or feel what you've felt. And the more you try to explain, to justify, to prove your truth, the more you hand your peace over to someone else. A fragile and uncertain exchange. Every misunderstanding drains your energy, your trust, your stillness, and before long, you may start to doubt your own path just because others couldn't see its light. Letting go of the need to be understood does not mean closing off or becoming isolated. On the contrary, it's a sign of a mature inner life. When you know your own heart is clear, when you understand your reasons, your silences, your decisions, Then you no longer need external validation for your truth. You begin to realize truth doesn't need an audience to be real. It doesn't need to be defended by arguments or protected by explanations. It simply needs to be lived in your gestures, your eyes, your breath. And when you live truthfully, whether others understand or not, you remain steady. The one who lets go of the need to be understood is someone who knows that sometimes silence speaks louder than any words, not because they are weak, but because they have grown beyond the need to prove. They no longer live for approval from others, but to protect the clarity within themselves. The Buddha taught about equanimity, a deep steadiness of heart that does not rise or fall with praise or blame. When you are misunderstood, ask yourself, am I speaking from compassion, or is it just my ego trying to defend itself? If it's the ego, smile gently and release. If it's compassion, speak with kindness and let go of the result. Because in the end, the person who most needs to understand you is you. The person who must trust you is also you. And when you stand firm in that, no misunderstanding can shake your center. You no longer live to be accepted. You live to be free. Letting go of resistance. Because the more we fight reality, the further we drift from peace. There is a quiet battle that many of us are fighting each day, the battle against what is. Often, without realizing it, we resist. We resist our true emotions. We resist change. We resist things that don't go our way. And sometimes, we even resist the person we are becoming. We carry within us a silent expectation. Life must be this way for me to be happy. I shouldn't be feeling like this. This shouldn't be happening to me. And in that resistance, suffering is born. As the Buddha taught, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is part of being human. Suffering arises when we push against the reality of the present moment. When we say, this shouldn't be happening, we are no longer living with what is. We are living with a version of life that exists only in our imagination. It's like swimming upstream against the current. The harder we try, the more exhausted we become. But if we were to let go, to surrender to the flow, the river would carry us, not away from peace, but toward it. Resistance shows up in many forms, holding on to grudges long after the moment has passed, denying a loss that has already occurred, suppressing sadness instead of feeling it, pretending to be strong when we're utterly tired inside. In all of this, we are essentially saying, I refuse to accept this part of life. And so we suffer, not because of the event itself, but because we resist it. Buddhism offers us a profound yet gentle strength, radical acceptance. Acceptance does not mean giving up or being passive. It means seeing things as they are, with compassion and without judgment. It's the courage to say, this is my emotion, this is my reality. I will be present with it instead of fighting it. And when we begin to accept, something remarkable happens. We breathe more deeply, the mind softens, and clarity begins to emerge. We no longer ask, why me? But instead begin to ask, what is this trying to teach me? Perhaps the lesson is about letting go. Perhaps it's about patience. Or maybe it's an invitation to love ourselves more deeply. Letting go of resistance does not mean giving in. It means ending the war with what cannot be changed. It means pausing in the middle of the storm to listen to the quiet voice of inner wisdom. It means finding shelter not in the outer world, but in the stillness within. In the end, we cannot control all situations, but we can choose how we show up for them. And in that shift, peace is no longer something distant. It becomes what has been waiting for us all along, just behind the wall of our resistance. Letting go is not losing, but remembering the wholeness that was never gone. Many people fear letting go because they believe it means losing. Losing a loved one, losing the familiar, losing control, titles, or even long-held beliefs. But the truth is, letting go does not leave you with less. It opens the door to something more. It is a return to your deepest self, to the part of you that was never truly broken. Letting go is not a fall. It is the first deep breath after years of holding tension. It is not a collapse. It is a transformation. Like a leaf falling from a branch, not to die but to return to the earth, where it will quietly nourish new life in its own sacred way. When you let go of control, you do not become weak. You become fluid, adaptable like water. When you release attachment, you are not left empty. You create space for true love and freedom. When you let go of the past, you do not erase memory. You stop letting it define your present. When you let go of the ego, you do not lose yourself. You simply shed the mask and come home to the light within you that was always there. Letting go of expectations does not make you cold. It allows you to love without strings, to act without demands, to give without needing. And when you no longer need to be understood in order to feel whole, you will find a quiet stillness in your own gaze. A stillness that needs no words, no defense, no spotlight, only presence. In the end, when you stop resisting what is, you are not surrendering to fate. You are surrendering to truth. You are no longer fighting the current of life, but flowing with it. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this moment here to teach me?" Everything you've ever let go of were layers of dust on the surface of a mirror. And once those layers are wiped away, you don't just see the world more clearly. You see yourself. No longer the one grasping, resisting, or performing, but the one who has learned to sit in the wind and smile. Letting go is not the end of something. It is the beginning of a new way of being, a return to your original wholeness, where your heart is as still as a lake, as vast as the sky, and every breath holds compassion. So if today there is something in your heart that feels too heavy, a person, a memory, a fear, or a word left unsaid, gently place your hand on your chest and ask, "Is it time?" And if the answer whispers, "Yes," then let it go. Not to fall, but to rise.